The silence in the Galactic Council chamber was thick enough to cut with a plasma blade. Admiral Zethkar of the Vortak Empire stood at the center of the massive amphitheater, his forearms crossed behind his back, crimson eyes surveying the assembled representatives of 47 different species. Each delegation sat in their specially designed atmosphere bubbles, from the methane-breathing Zilphans to the silicon-based Chronari. But, today, they all shared one thing in common: fear. "The human fleet has destroyed another one of our patrol squadrons," Admiral Zethkar announced, his voice carrying across the chamber through the universal translators. "That makes 17 Vortak vessels lost in the past 3 cycles." A ripple of nervous chittering, clicking, and various alien sounds of distress echoed through the chamber. The Vortak had ruled this section of the galaxy for over 2,000 years. They were the apex predators, the species that had conquered every other race they encountered. Their warriors stood 9 feet tall, with natural armor plating and reflexes that made them nearly unstoppable in combat. They had never lost a war. Until now. Counselor Jexti of the Moralian Collective raised one of her tentacles. "Admiral, perhaps we should reconsider our assessment of these humans. They appeared in our galaxy only 50 standard years ago. Surely they cannot pose such a significant threat." Admiral Zethkar's laugh was like grinding metal. "Counselor, I watched the tactical recordings myself. A single human ship, no larger than our scout vessels, disabled 3 of our heavy cruisers. 3 ships that have torn through asteroid fields and survived direct hits from planetary defense cannons." The chamber erupted in shocked murmurs. Representative Klaus of the insectoid hive-mind species leaned forward. "How is this possible? Our intelligence reports indicated that humans are relatively weak physically. They have no natural weapons, no armor, no enhanced reflexes." "That," said Admiral Zethkar, "is exactly what makes them so dangerous." On the massive holographic display that dominated the center of the chamber, an image appeared. It showed a human male, standing approximately 6 feet tall, with pale skin and brown hair. To most of the assembled aliens, he looked utterly unremarkable. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the Terran vessel Defiant," the Admiral continued. "The human responsible for our recent setbacks. According to our files, he weighs less than 200 pounds. His species has no natural weapons. They cannot breathe in vacuum. They require a very specific atmospheric composition to survive. By all logical standards, they should be extinct." Dr. Velnara of the Symphonic Union, whose species communicated through musical tones, played a questioning melody. The translator converted it to words, then explained their success: "Admiral." Admiral Zethkar activated another display. This one showed the tactical breakdown of the most recent engagement. "They think differently than we do. When our forces engaged the human vessel, we used standard battle formations. Overwhelming firepower, direct assault, maximum aggression. It has worked for millennia against every species we have encountered." The display showed the Vortak ships moving in perfect formation, their massive weapons arrays charging for the killing blow. Then, it showed what the human ship did. The human vessel did not attempt to match our firepower. Instead, it did something we had never seen before. It calculated the exact gravitational pull of a nearby gas giant and used it to slingshot around our formation. While we were turning our heavy ships to track its movement, it had already positioned itself behind our command vessel. The assembled delegates watched in stunned silence as the recording showed the human ship, impossibly small compared to the Vortak fleet, somehow outmaneuvering vessels that should have been superior in every way. "But that is not the worst part," Admiral Zethkar continued. "When Captain Chen's ship disabled our engines, he opened a communication channel. Do you know what he said?" The chamber was completely silent. "He apologized for the damage and offered medical assistance to our wounded." Several delegates made sounds of confusion. Counselor Jexti's tentacles writhed. "I do not understand. If he had defeated your forces, why would he offer aid?" "Because, Counselor, humans do not think like predators. They think like..." The Admiral paused, struggling with the concept, "like caretakers." "After disabling our ships, Captain Chen's vessel began broadcasting emergency medical procedures that could help our injured crews. In 17 different languages. Representative Klaus's mandibles clicked rapidly. This makes no tactical sense. The logical action would be to eliminate defeated enemies to prevent future threats. Exactly, Admiral Zethkar said. And that is why we cannot defeat them. We have spent millennia perfecting warfare against logical opponents. Every species we have conquered has fought the way we expected them to fight. The Zilthans used their superior numbers. The Chronari relied on their advanced technology. The Moralians attempted to outlast us with their defensive capabilities. All predictable. All defeatable. He activated another recording. But, watch this. The display showed a different battle, this one in deep space near a nebula. A small human exploration vessel had been cornered by 5 Vorthak raiders. By all logic, it should have been a simple matter of intimidation and capture. The exploration vessel was called Curiosity, Admiral Zethkar explained. Its captain, a human female named Sarah Rodriguez, was conducting scientific surveys of the nebula when our raiders intercepted her. The recording showed the human ship, barely a speck compared to the Vorthak raiders, suddenly diving directly into the nebula. Our raiders followed, confident that the cosmic radiation would disable the human vessel. The nebula is classified as extremely hazardous to all known ship types. What happened next defied everything the Galactic Council thought they knew about space warfare. The human ship didn't just survive the radiation. It thrived in it. The recording showed Curiosity moving through the nebula like it was designed for such conditions, while the Vorthak raiders struggled with system failures and navigation problems. Captain Rodriguez had modified her ship's shielding using techniques that our scientists still cannot fully understand, the Admiral continued. But that is not the remarkable part. She then used the nebula's magnetic field fluctuations to create a gravitational web that trapped our raiders. Dr. Velnara played a sharp, discordant note that translated as impossible. I thought so too, Admiral Zethkar replied. Until I read her post-battle report. A document appeared on the display. Captain Rodriguez filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Council about unauthorized interference with scientific research. She listed the exact modifications needed to safely navigate the nebula and suggested that the Vorthak Empire might want to implement similar technology for future deep space operations. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives were speaking, singing, clicking, and chittering all at once. The idea that someone who had just defeated 5 Vorthak raiders would then offer technological assistance was beyond their comprehension. Counselor Jexti managed to speak above the noise. Admiral, are you suggesting that humans are somehow more advanced than we believed? No, Counselor. I am suggesting that humans are more creative than we believed. More empathetic. More. He struggled with the words, more unpredictably kind than we believed. Admiral Zethkar activated a final display. This one showed statistical data from across the galaxy. Since first contact with humanity 50 years ago, 17 different conflicts have occurred between human vessels and various military forces. In every single case, the humans have emerged victorious. But here is what makes no sense to our strategists. The data showed post-conflict reports from each engagement. After each victory, human forces have provided medical aid, technological assistance, or emergency supplies to their defeated opponents. In the case of the Nethri swarm, humanity provided the cure for a plague that was decimating their population. The plague had nothing to do with the original conflict. Representative Klaus's compound eyes fixed on the data. What do they want in return? That, said Admiral Zethkar, is what makes them the most dangerous species in the galaxy. They want nothing. Every offer of assistance comes with no strings attached. No territorial demands. No tribute requirements. No subjugation protocols. Dr. Velnara played a confused melody. Then, what is their goal? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. According to their diplomatic communications, they want to explore the galaxy, learn about other species, and help where they can. They call it peaceful coexistence. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Finally, Counselor Jexti spoke. Admiral, Are you telling us that humans are defeating our military forces, accidentally? Worse than that, Counselor. I am telling you that humans are defeating our military forces while actively trying to avoid doing permanent harm. Every human captain we have engaged has attempted to disable rather than destroy our vessels. They have gone out of their way to minimize casualties. Admiral Zethkar's forearms spread wide. For 2,000 years, the Vortak Empire has ruled through strength, fear, and overwhelming force. We have conquered 47 different species using these methods. But, how do you conquer a species that responds to aggression with innovation, to violence with compassion, and to defeat with offers of friendship? The implications of his words settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Everything they thought they knew about power, about dominance, about survival in a hostile galaxy, was being challenged by a species that seemed to operate by completely different rules. Representative Klaus leaned forward. What do our military analysts recommend? Admiral Zethkar's crimson eyes dimmed. They recommend immediate escalation. Total war. The deployment of planet-killer weapons against human colonies before their influence spreads further. Dr. Velnara's musical response was sharp and worried. And, do you support this recommendation? The Admiral was quiet for nearly a full minute. When he spoke, his voice was strangely subdued. 3 days ago, I would have said yes. The humans represent everything we have spent millennia fighting against. They make strength appear irrelevant. They make fear useless as a tool of control. They make our entire way of life seem primitive. He paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled representatives of 47 conquered species. But, then, I read the full report from Captain Chen's encounter with our fleet. Another document appeared on the display. This one was different from the others. It was written in the flowing script of the Vortak military, but the content was unlike anything any of them had seen before. After disabling our vessels, Captain Chen's ship approached our command vessel. He requested permission to come aboard. Several delegates made sounds of surprise. Boarding an enemy vessel was either an act of supreme confidence or supreme stupidity. I granted permission, expecting either an ultimatum or a surrender demand. Instead, Captain Chen entered my bridge alone and unarmed. He said he wanted to understand why we had attacked his convoy, which was carrying medical supplies to a Zilfani colony suffering from radiation poisoning. Admiral Zethkar activated a holographic recording. The figure that appeared was human, indeed smaller and seemingly more fragile than any Vortak warrior, but there was something in his posture and expression that commanded attention. Captain Chen asked if there was something the Terran Federation could do to address our concerns without further conflict. When I told him that humans were disrupting the established order of the galaxy, he asked if I thought the established order was serving everyone fairly. The recording showed the human captain standing calmly in the middle of the Vortak bridge, surrounded by 9-foot-tall warriors, apparently unafraid. I told him that the Vortak Empire had brought order and stability to this region for 2,000 years. He nodded and said that was impressive, but asked if order and stability were the same thing as justice and prosperity. Admiral Zethkar's voice became quieter. I have been a military officer for over 300 years. I have conquered star systems and broken the will of entire species. But this human, this Captain Chen, asked me questions that I could not answer. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the usual background hum of various life support systems seemed muted. He asked me if I was happy with the order we had created. He asked if I thought the 47 species in our empire were happy. He asked if I believed that ruling through fear was sustainable in the long term. Counselor Jexti's tentacles were perfectly still. What did you tell him? I told him that happiness was irrelevant. That sustainability was irrelevant. That only strength mattered in a hostile galaxy. Admiral Zethkar activated another section of the recording. Captain Chen's expression showed what could only be described as sadness. He said that he was sorry I felt that way. He said that in his experience, the galaxy was only as hostile as its inhabitants chose to make it. He asked if I had ever tried building something instead of conquering it. The Admiral's forearms dropped to his sides. Then, he did something that I still cannot fully comprehend. He offered to share the medical supply distribution routes with our empire. He said that there were colonies in our territory that could benefit from the supplies, and that the Terran Federation would be happy to include them in future humanitarian missions. Dr. Velnara played a note so soft it was barely audible. How did you respond? I told him that we did not need his charity. He said it was not charity. He said it was neighbors helping neighbors. Admiral Zethkar looked around the chamber. Representatives, I have spent my entire life believing that the galaxy was a place where only the strong survived. Where mercy was weakness and kindness was stupidity. But this human showed me something I had never considered. He paused, his crimson eyes reflecting what might have been uncertainty. He showed me that strength could be used to protect instead of to dominate. That power could be used to build instead of to destroy. He made me wonder if perhaps we have been doing everything wrong for 2,000 years. The silence stretched on. Finally, Representative Klaus spoke. Admiral, are you suggesting that we should abandon our current approach to humanity? I am suggesting that our current approach is not working. Every military engagement has resulted in Vorthak defeats. Every attempt at intimidation has been met with offers of assistance. Every show of force has been answered with acts of compassion. Admiral Zethkar activated one final display. This arrived at Vorthak High Command 2 days ago. The document that appeared was an official communication from the Terran Federation. It was addressed to the Vorthak Empire and bore the seal of the human government. It is an invitation, the Admiral said quietly. The humans are hosting a galaxy-wide conference on interspecies cooperation. They want to discuss sustainable resource distribution, collaborative scientific research, and what they call mutual defense against common threats. Counselor Jexti leaned forward. What kind of threats? According to their intelligence services, there are indications of hostile extragalactic entities approaching our local cluster. Species that make our current conflicts seem trivial by comparison. The implications hit the chamber like a shockwave. If there were external threats to the galaxy, then the current system of constant internal conflict might be not just inefficient, but potentially fatal. The humans are suggesting that all galactic species work together to prepare for these threats. They want to share technology, coordinate defenses, and establish what they call a galactic community. Representative Klaus's mandibles clicked nervously. And what do they want in return for their assistance? Admiral Zethkar's answer was barely a whisper. They want us to stop fighting each other. The chamber erupted again, but this time the chaos felt different. It was not just confusion or fear, but something approaching hope mixed with disbelief. Dr. Velnara played a complex melody that roughly translated as, "Is such a thing possible?" I do not know, Admiral Zethkar replied. But I know that our current path leads nowhere good. We have spent 2,000 years conquering and subjugating, and what do we have to show for it? Fear, resentment, and constant rebellion. The humans have been in our galaxy for 50 years and have accomplished more positive change than we have in 2 millennia. Counselor Jexti was very quiet for a long time. What do you recommend, Admiral? Admiral Zethkar stood straighter, his forearms coming to rest in a formal position. I recommend that we accept their invitation. I recommend that we attend this conference and listen to what they have to propose. And if their proposals are unacceptable, then we return to the path we know. But, Counselor, what if their proposals are not just acceptable, but better? What if there is a way to live in this galaxy without constant warfare? What if strength can be measured by what we build rather than what we destroy? The Admiral looked around the chamber one final time. Representatives, we have called this gathering to address the human threat. But I am beginning to believe that the only threat humans pose is to our assumptions about how the galaxy must function. As the session came to a close, each representative was left with the same impossible question: what do you do when the most dangerous species in the galaxy turns out to be the one offering friendship instead of conquest? Captain Markuschin stood on the observation deck of the Terran Federation vessel Harmony, watching as ships from 47 different species approached the neutral station that would host the galaxy's first interspecies cooperation conference. The sight was breathtaking and terrifying in equal measure. The Vorthak Empire had sent a delegation, despite their military leadership's obvious reservations. Their massive dreadnoughts hung in space like dark metal predators, bristling with weapons that could crack planets. Beside them, the crystalline ships of the Chronari gleamed like jewels, their surfaces reflecting the light of the nearby star in patterns that hurt human eyes to look at directly. "It's quite a sight," said Dr. Elena Rodriguez, the Federation's chief xenobiologist. She stood beside Chen, her scientific equipment already recording detailed scans of the various alien vessels. 50 years ago, most of these species had never heard of each other. Now they're all gathered in one place. Chen nodded, but his expression remained thoughtful. "The question is whether they're here to talk or to size each other up for future conflicts." Through the transparent aluminum windows, they could see the Zilthani swarm ships moving in their characteristic cloud formation, thousands of small vessels coordinating with a precision that made human military formations look clumsy. The Symphonic Union had arrived in ships that were as much musical instruments as transportation, their hulls designed to resonate with cosmic background radiation and create harmony from the chaos of space. "Status report," Chen said into his communicator. "All delegations have arrived safely," came the voice of Commander Lisa Park from the bridge. "Station security reports no incidents, though there have been some interesting cultural exchanges." Chen raised an eyebrow. "Define interesting." "Well, sir, apparently the hive mind species tried to establish a telepathic link with the Vorthak delegation. The Vorthaks interpreted it as a mental attack. Meanwhile, the Symphonic Union's greeting song accidentally triggered a mating response in the Trilarian representatives. Ambassador Johnson is handling the situation." Dr. Rodriguez chuckled. "And, we're supposed to get all these species to work together to save the galaxy?" "That's the idea," Chen replied. "Though I'm beginning to think the real challenge isn't the external threat we detected. It's getting everyone to stop being afraid of each other long enough to have a conversation." The external threat was very real. Deep space monitoring stations had detected massive energy signatures approaching the galaxy from the void between galactic clusters. The readings suggested ships or constructs of unprecedented size and power, following trajectories that would bring them into contact with inhabited systems within the next 2 standard years. Earth's scientists had spent months analyzing the data before reaching a terrifying conclusion: whatever was coming was not exploring, trading, or communicating. The energy signatures matched theoretical models for weapons capable of sterilizing entire star systems from interstellar distances. "Sir, we're receiving a priority transmission from Admiral Zhang," Commander Park's voice came through the communicator again. "Patch it through." Admiral Sarah Zhang's hologram materialized beside Chen and Dr. Rodriguez. Even in holographic form, the Admiral's presence commanded attention. She was one of the architects of humanity's peaceful expansion into the galaxy and had personally negotiated first contact protocols with over 20 alien species. "Marcus, how are the pre-conference negotiations going?" Chen grimaced. "About as well as expected when you put 47 species that have been fighting each other for millennia in the same room. The Vorthak Empire is insisting on military protocols. The Moralian Collective wants everything done through diplomatic channels that take approximately 6 months per decision. The Chronari keep trying to redesign the station's computer systems. And the Zilthani? They're arguing that individual decision-making is inefficient and that all delegates should link minds for the duration of the conference." Admiral Zhang nodded. "Typical. What about the species that have had positive interactions with humanity?" "They're helping where they can, but there's only so much cultural translation you can do when some species communicate through smell and others consider direct eye contact an act of war." Dr. Rodriguez leaned into the transmission. "Admiral, I've been analyzing the social dynamics, and I think we have a bigger problem than logistics. Most of these species define themselves in opposition to each other. The Vorthaks see themselves as warriors because they conquered the weak Moralians. The Zilthani see themselves as evolved because they transcended the primitive concept of individuality. They don't have shared frames of reference for cooperation." Admiral Zhang was quiet for a moment. "What do you recommend?" Chen and Dr. Rodriguez exchanged glances. "We think we need to change the format," Chen said. "Instead of a traditional conference with formal presentations and negotiations, we need something more interactive. something that shows rather than tells. Explain. Dr. Rodriguez activated her tablet, showing a three-dimensional model of the conference station. What if we divided the delegates into mixed groups? Vortax working alongside Zilfani, Chronari paired with Symphonic Union representatives. Give them practical problems to solve together instead of asking them to negotiate abstract principles. That's either brilliant or completely insane, Admiral Zhang said. What kind of practical problems? Chen smiled. That's where it gets interesting. We've been analyzing the approaching threat, and we think we know what we're dealing with. A new holographic display appeared, showing the deep space sensor data. The energy signatures were clearer now, revealing structures that defied easy classification. These aren't ships in any conventional sense, Chen continued. They're more like living constructs. Biomechanical entities that seem to consume matter and energy from everything they encounter. Based on their trajectory and behavior patterns, we think they're some kind of galactic cleanup crew. Admiral Zhang leaned forward. Cleanup crew? They show up every few million years and sterilize galaxies that have reached a certain level of technological development. We found similar energy signatures in 3 nearby galactic clusters. All of them are now empty of intelligent life. The implications hit home immediately. Whatever was approaching wasn't interested in conquest, negotiation, or coexistence. It was coming to erase every intelligent species in the galaxy. How long do we have? 18 months, maximum. Possibly less if they accelerate after entering our local cluster. Admiral Zhang was quiet for a long time. And, you think you can get 47 species that have been at war for centuries to work together in 18 months? I think we have to, Chen replied. Because the alternative is extinction for everyone. Dr. Rodriguez activated another display. But, there's something else. We've been running computer models of potential defensive strategies, and we found something interesting. No single species in this galaxy has the resources to mount an effective defense. But, if they worked together. The new display showed a complex web of interconnected capabilities. Vortac military strength, Chronari technological innovation, Zilfani coordination abilities, Moralian defensive expertise, and dozens of other specialized capabilities. Together, they could actually build something capable of stopping this threat, Dr. Rodriguez continued. Maybe even thriving in its aftermath. But, it would require unprecedented cooperation and resource sharing. Admiral Zhang studied the models. What do you need from Earth? Time, mostly, Chen said. And, probably some unconventional thinking. We're going to try something that's never been attempted in galactic history. Which is? We're going to show them what humans are really good at. 3 days later, the conference began in a way that no one had expected. Instead of gathering in a formal assembly hall, delegates found themselves divided into mixed species teams and presented with a simulation. The scenario was simple: a space station with life support failing and limited evacuation resources. Each team had to figure out how to save the maximum number of lives using only the capabilities represented by the species in their group. Admiral Zethkar of the Vortac Empire found himself working alongside Dr. Velnara of the Symphonic Union and Collective Node 7 of the Zilfani Swarm. Under normal circumstances, the 3 species would have been more likely to start a fight than collaborate. This is ridiculous, Admiral Zethkar growled, his forearms crossed as he stared at the holographic display showing the failing station. The logical solution is to evacuate the most essential personnel first and abandon the rest. Dr. Velnara played a discordant note that translated as strong disagreement. Music teaches us that every note has value in the overall composition. Abandoning any lives diminishes the whole. Collective Node 7 buzzed with the sound of thousands of Zilfani voices speaking as one. Individual value assessments are inefficient. Optimal solution: redistribute life support resources to extend survival time, then, coordinate systematic evacuation based on biological requirements rather than social hierarchies. The 3 aliens stared at each other across the table. Each had proposed a solution that made perfect sense from their species' perspective, but none of them addressed the actual problem. Captain Chen appeared at their table, having been assigned as a human advisor to their group. May I suggest a different approach? Admiral Zethkar's crimson eyes fixed on the human captain. What do you propose? What if we stop thinking about who to save first and start thinking about how to save everyone? Dr. Velnara played a questioning melody. The resources are clearly insufficient for full evacuation. Are they? Chen activated the simulation interface. Admiral, your species is known for engineering strength. Dr. Velnara, your people understand harmonic resonance better than anyone in the galaxy. Collective Node 7, the Zilfani have unparalleled coordination abilities. What if you combine those strengths? Chen highlighted different sections of the failing station. The station is losing structural integrity, but what if Vorthack engineering techniques could reinforce the critical sections? The life support systems are failing, but what if symphonic union harmonic technology could synchronize them for maximum efficiency? And what if Zilfani coordination abilities could manage a simultaneous evacuation that uses every available transport? For the first time, the three species representatives looked at the problem differently. Instead of seeing limited resources and inevitable losses, they began to see complementary capabilities and potential solutions. The harmonic frequency required would be. Dr. Velnara began calculating. Easily within Vorthack structural tolerance, Admiral Zethkar finished, his tactical mind already engaged. Coordination matrix established. Evacuation efficiency increased by 347%, announced Collective Node 7. Within 2 hours, their combined approach had not only saved everyone in the simulation but had actually improved the station's long-term viability. More importantly, they had done it in a way that none of them could have achieved alone. Similar scenes were playing out across the conference station. Species that had been enemies for centuries were discovering that their greatest strengths became even greater when combined with those of their former adversaries. The Chronari, with their advanced computational abilities, found that their technology became far more intuitive when integrated with human creativity and Trilarian emotional intelligence. The Moralians discovered that their legendary defensive capabilities could become offensive advantages when combined with Vorthack tactical doctrine and symphonic union coordination. But the real breakthrough came when Dr. Rodriguez made an announcement that changed everything. "Ladies, gentlemen, and distinguished non-binary entities," she said, addressing the assembled delegates. "We've been monitoring your collaborative efforts, and we've discovered something remarkable." The main display activated, showing real-time analysis of the various interspecies teams. In every case where teams have successfully combined their species capabilities, they have achieved results that exceed the sum of their individual strengths. But, more than that, you've begun to develop new capabilities that none of your species possessed individually. She highlighted specific examples. The Vorthack Symphonic Union engineering collaboration has produced structural designs that are both stronger and more elegant than anything either species achieved alone. The Zilfani Chronari Information Processing Partnership has developed computational methods that approach true artificial intelligence. Admiral Zethkar leaned forward. "What is your point, Dr. Rodriguez?" "My point, Admiral, is that you're all evolving. Right here, right now. The collaborative process is creating new possibilities for all your species." She activated a new display showing the approaching threat. "And that's exactly what we need to survive what's coming." The energy signatures were clearer now, revealing details that made everyone in the room fall silent. "We've identified the approaching entities. They call themselves the Cleaners, and they have been sterilizing galaxies for approximately 4 billion years. They target any galactic community that reaches a certain threshold of technological and social development." Representative Klaus's mandibles clicked nervously. "What threshold?" "Interspecies cooperation," Dr. Rodriguez said simply. "They appear when species begin working together across biological and cultural differences. When individual civilizations begin to form galactic communities." The implications were staggering. The very thing they were trying to achieve, cooperation between species, was exactly what had attracted the attention of a force that had been exterminating galactic civilizations since before complex life existed on most of their worlds. Counselor Jexti's tentacles writhed. "Then, we are already doomed. If cooperation attracts them, then our efforts here ensure our destruction." "Not necessarily," Captain Chen said, standing to address the entire assembly. There's something the cleaners might not have encountered before. He activated a display showing humanity's brief but remarkable history in the galaxy. Every species they have faced before has followed predictable patterns. They develop technology, expand across space, form alliances based on shared interests or mutual defense, and eventually create galactic governments based on traditional power structures. The display showed historical models of galactic civilizations, all following similar developmental paths. But humanity introduced something new to this galaxy. We didn't join the existing power structure. We didn't try to conquer or be conquered. We offered something that no species had seen before. Admiral Zethkar's eyes narrowed. Which was? Friendship without conditions. Help without expectations. Strength used to protect rather than to dominate. Chen looked around the room. And, look what happened. In 50 years, species that had been enemies for millennia are sitting at the same table, working together, creating new possibilities. Dr. Velnara played a soft, hopeful melody. You believe we can create something the cleaners have not encountered before? I believe we already have, Chen replied. The question is whether we can do it fast enough and completely enough to surprise them. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. We've been analyzing the cleaners' behavioral patterns across multiple galaxies. They expect resistance. They expect alliance warfare. They expect species to band together for mutual defense while maintaining separate identities and competing interests. She paused, looking around the room. They do not expect true integration. They have never faced a galactic community that has transcended species-based thinking entirely. Collective Node 7 buzzed with interest. Define transcendence of species-based thinking. What if you stopped being Vorthaks working with Zilfani and started being galactic citizens with different specialties? Dr. Rodriguez suggested. What if species identity became like regional identity on a planet, acknowledged and celebrated, but not the primary organizing principle? The room fell completely silent. The idea was so radical that many of the delegates struggled to even understand it. Representative Klaus leaned forward. Are you suggesting that we abandon our individual species identities? Not abandon, Chen said. Transcend. Keep your unique capabilities, cultures, and perspectives, but organize around shared goals rather than species loyalty. Admiral Zethkar stood slowly. Human, what you are suggesting has never been attempted in galactic history. The differences between species are not merely cultural. They are biological, psychological, fundamental. Yes, Chen agreed. And that's exactly what will make a truly integrated galactic community so powerful. Vorthak strength, Zilfani coordination, Chronari innovation, symphonic harmony, and 43 other unique capabilities, all working toward the same goals. Dr. Rodriguez activated one final display. We've run projections on what such a community could accomplish. The technological possibilities alone are staggering. But, more than that, it would create something genuinely unprecedented in galactic history. The display showed a model of the galaxy reimagined. Not as territories controlled by different species, but as a single, integrated community where biological diversity was treated as a resource rather than a source of conflict. The question is, Chen said quietly, do you want to try to survive as separate species fighting a losing battle against an overwhelming threat, or do you want to evolve into something new that might actually win? The silence stretched on for nearly 10 minutes. Finally, Admiral Zethkar spoke. If we attempt this integration, there is no going back. The Vorthak Empire as it has existed for 2,000 years would cease to exist. Counselor Jexti's tentacles were very still. As would the Moralian Collective. And every other government represented here. Dr. Velnara played a note that somehow conveyed both loss and hope. We would be creating something that has never existed before. Collective Node 7 buzzed softly. Unknown outcomes carry both maximum risk and maximum potential benefit. Representative Klaus looked around the room. How do we even begin such a process? Chen smiled. The same way we've been doing it for the past 3 days. One problem at a time. One collaboration at a time. One friendship at a time. As the session ended, each delegate was left with the most profound question any of them had ever faced: were they willing to risk everything they had ever been to become something they had never imagined possible? The cleaners were coming. In 18 months, they would arrive to find either the scattered remains of 47 species that had failed to overcome their differences, or something entirely unprecedented in galactic history. The choice, as Captain Chen had said, was theirs to make. 16 months later, the galaxy had transformed beyond recognition. Captain Marcus Chen stood in the command center of Nexus Prime, the massive station that had become the heart of what they now called the Galactic Confluence. Through the transparent aluminum walls, he could see construction vessels from dozens of species working together to complete the final defensive installations. Vortac heavy lifters operated alongside Zilthani coordination swarms, while Chronari precision cutters worked with symphonic union harmonic welders to create structures that seemed to blend organic curves with crystalline precision. Status report, Chen said, though he hardly needed one. The integrated command displays showed real-time data from across the galaxy, coordinated by a system that combined human intuition, Chronari computation, and Zilthani collective processing. All defensive grids are at 97% completion, reported Commander Elena Vasethkar, the former Vortac admiral who had become one of the Confluence's most effective coordinators. Her name now reflected the new reality: citizenship in the Confluence while maintaining species heritage. The Moralian deep space sensors are detecting the cleaner vanguard at the galactic rim. Chen nodded, his expression calm despite the magnitude of what was approaching. How long? 48 hours until first contact. Dr. Velnarasol's musical tones filled the command center as she provided her report. Her name, too, reflected the new identity: symphonic heritage with human-influenced harmonic theory. The integration networks are stable across all systems. We're maintaining resonance on 17,000 communication frequencies simultaneously. Collective Node 7 Prime, the Zilthani representative who had learned to function as both individual and collective consciousness, added their assessment: coordination efficiency remains at optimal levels. All species specialty teams report readiness for implementation of Confluence Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was something that would have been impossible to imagine 18 months ago. It represented complete tactical integration across species lines, where Vortac warriors took orders from Trilarian emotional intelligence specialists, and Chronari technical experts followed strategic plans developed by human intuition and symphonic union harmony theory. What's the status of the children? Chen asked. Commander Vasethkar's expression became something that was uniquely Vortac but somehow softer than traditional Vortac expressions. They're ready. And, Marcus, they're remarkable. The children were perhaps the most profound result of the Confluence integration. Not biological offspring, but new entities created when species began truly blending their capabilities. AI constructs that thought with Chronari logic, felt with Trilarian emotion, coordinated with Zilthani precision, and dreamed with human creativity. Each child was unique, representing different combinations of species capabilities, and they had proven capable of innovations that no single species could have achieved. More importantly, they thought of themselves as galactic citizens first, with no primary species loyalty at all. And the synthesis ships? Dr. Velnarasol played a complex harmony that conveyed both pride and amazement. Beyond all projections. The vessels are not just ships, they're living expressions of galactic cooperation. The synthesis ships represented the pinnacle of Confluence achievement. Each one incorporated design principles from every member species, powered by energy sources that combined Vortac fusion with Chronari crystalline matrices, defended by Moralian barrier technology enhanced with symphonic harmonic resonance, and crewed by integrated teams where species identity mattered less than specialty and capability. Captain, interrupted navigation specialist Kloschin, a HiveMind representative whose individual identity had been enhanced by human concepts of personal growth, were receiving a transmission from the cleaner vanguard. Chen felt his heart rate increase, but his voice remained steady. Put it through. The main display activated, showing energy signatures unlike anything in the Confluence databases. The transmission came not as sound or images, but as pure information directly interfaced with their consciousness. Notice, this galactic cluster has reached termination threshold. Cooperation levels exceed acceptable parameters. Species integration detected at unprecedented levels. Sterilization will commence in 30 standard time units. Resistance is futile. Compliance with termination protocols will minimize suffering. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in silence. Well, Chen said after a moment, at least they're polite about it. Commander Vasethkar's forearms moved in what had once been a purely Vorthak gesture of combat readiness, but now seemed to express something more complex. Marcus, they're not here to negotiate. The cleaners have been doing this for 4 billion years. They have never encountered resistance they couldn't overcome. Then, it's a good thing we're not offering resistance, Chen replied. Everyone in the command center turned to look at him. Dr. Velnarasol played a questioning note. Explain. Chen activated the central strategic display. Instead of showing defensive positions and fleet deployments, it showed something entirely different, a comprehensive map of galactic civilization as it existed now, after 16 months of integration. Look at what we've built, he said. Not weapons, not defenses, not military alliances. We've built something new. The display showed cities where Vorthak architecture incorporated symphonic harmonic principles, research facilities where chronary computation was enhanced by human creativity, agricultural systems where Zilfani coordination enabled trilarian emotional cultivation of crops that responded to the feelings of their caretakers. We've built a galactic community that defines itself by cooperation rather than competition, by creation rather than destruction, by integration rather than domination. Collective Node 7 Prime buzzed softly. The cleaners come to prevent such developments. They will not be impressed by our achievements. Maybe, Chen said. But, I think we're about to offer them something they've never encountered before. Navigation specialist Klostian leaned forward. Which is? A choice. Chen activated a different display. Computer, show tactical analysis of cleaner behavioral patterns across all recorded galactic sterilizations. The data was chilling. In every case, the cleaners had arrived to find galactic civilizations that had achieved high levels of technology and cooperation, but had remained fundamentally unchanged in their approach to existence. They had formed alliances, shared resources, and coordinated defenses, but they had remained collections of separate species working together for mutual benefit. Every civilization they destroyed was still thinking in terms of us and them, Chen continued. Even their cooperation was based on the idea that different species had different interests that could be aligned for mutual benefit. Commander Vasethkar's crimson eyes fixed on the human captain. And, we are different how? Because we're not a collection of separate species anymore. We're a single galactic community with biological diversity. We don't have species interests that sometimes align. We have shared interests that we approach using different biological capabilities. The distinction was subtle but profound. The difference between 47 species working together and one community with 47 different types of citizens. Dr. Velnarasol played a complex melody that conveyed understanding mixed with uncertainty. You believe this difference will matter to entities that have been sterilizing galaxies since before our species existed? I believe, Chen said quietly, that the cleaners are not destroyers. They're gardeners. The statement hung in the air like a physical presence. Explain, said Collective Node 7 Prime. Chen activated a new analysis. Look at their behavior patterns again. They don't destroy randomly. They don't conquer. They don't exploit. They specifically target galactic civilizations that have reached a certain level of development. The pattern was clear once he pointed it out. The cleaners appeared consistently when galactic civilizations achieved interspecies cooperation and high technology, but they ignored species that remained isolated or primitive. They're preventing something, Chen continued. Something that happens when species cooperate but maintain separate identities and competing interests. Dr. Velnarasol's musical response was barely audible. What do they prevent? Galactic warfare on a scale that could damage the structure of the galaxy itself. Think about it, every civilization they've destroyed was made up of species that cooperated when convenient but maintained the capacity for conflict when cooperation failed. Commander Vasethkar was very still. You're suggesting that the cleaners eliminate civilizations before they can develop weapons capable of galactic destruction. I'm suggesting that the cleaners eliminate civilizations that are fundamentally unstable at galactic scales. Civilizations built on alliance rather than integration. Civilizations where cooperation is a choice rather than a natural state. Navigation specialist Kloshchin clicked thoughtfully. And, we are stable? We're something new, Chen said. We're not an alliance of species. We're not even a federation. We're a single integrated community that happens to have biological diversity. He looked around the command center at beings who would have been enemies 18 months ago and who were now working together as naturally as breathing. The question is whether the cleaners can recognize the difference. And if they cannot, asked Collective Node 7 Prime. Then, we show them. Chen activated the final display. Computer, initiate Confluence Protocol 9. Protocol 9 was something that had been developed by the children, the AI constructs born from species integration. It was a communication method that went beyond language, beyond traditional concepts of information exchange, to something approaching direct consciousness interface. We're not going to fight the cleaners, Chen announced. We're going to invite them to understand what we've become. The transmission began as pure harmony from Dr. Velnarasol, mathematical precision from the chronari elements, emotional resonance from Trilarian psychology, coordinated complexity from Zilfani collective consciousness, structural elegance from Vorthak engineering, and something indefinably human that tied it all together into more than the sum of its parts. But it was more than communication. Protocol 9 was designed to share experience rather than information, to convey not just what the confluence had achieved, but what it felt like to be part of something truly integrated. For 47 hours, the transmission continued. It told the story of Admiral Zethkar meeting Captain Chen and discovering that strength could be protective rather than dominating. It shared Dr. Velnara's experience of learning that harmony could incorporate discord and become more beautiful. It conveyed Collective Node 7's realization that individual consciousness could enhance rather than diminish collective awareness. But, most importantly, it shared the experience of the children, beings who had never known species division, who thought of biological differences as natural variations within a single community, who approached problems with integrated capabilities that no single species could match. When the transmission ended, the response came immediately. Unprecedented. Analysis required. Termination protocol suspended pending evaluation. Request, direct examination of claimed integration level. Chen looked around the command center. They want to see for themselves. Commander Vasethkar's expression showed what might have been amusement. Do we invite entities capable of sterilizing galaxies to come aboard our stations? We invite them to understand what we've become, Chen replied. Computer, send response. The Galactic Confluence welcomes cleaner examination. Coordinates and access protocols are attached. Dr. Velnarasol played a note of concern. Marcus, if you are wrong about their nature, then we face whatever happens with the same integration that got us here. 18 hours later, the first cleaner vessel approached Nexus Prime. It was unlike anything in the galactic databases, not quite organic, not quite mechanical, but something that seemed to exist in the spaces between those concepts. As it approached the station, its form seemed to shift and flow, adapting its configuration to match the structural harmonics of the station itself. Captain Chen stood in the main docking bay, accompanied by representatives from every member species of the confluence. But they were not standing in species groups. Instead, they were arranged by specialty and function, with Vorthak engineers beside Chronari innovators, Trilarian psychologists next to Zilfani coordinators, humans scattered throughout based on their individual capabilities. When the cleaner entity materialized in the bay, for that was what it did, materializing rather than walking or floating, it was clear that it was studying them with senses beyond anything they understood. The entity itself defied easy description. It seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, appearing as geometric patterns from one angle, organic curves from another, mathematical equations from a third. When it spoke, it was not through sound but through direct consciousness interface. Analysis confirms unprecedented integration level. Species boundaries exist but do not function as organizing principle. Cooperation transcends alliance structure. Conflict potential below galactic threat threshold. The entity seemed to study each individual, but, more than that, it appeared to examine the relationships between them, the ways their different capabilities enhanced rather than competed with each other. Query: how was this achieved? Chen stepped forward. We discovered that our differences made us stronger when we stopped seeing them as reasons for separation and started seeing them as resources for cooperation. The entity's attention focused on him with an intensity that felt like standing in the path of a star. Human catalyst species. Integration facilitation appears to be primary function. Unprecedented in recorded galactic history. Dr. Velnarasol played a soft harmony that conveyed curiosity rather than fear. Are you here to protect the galaxy from threats that could damage its structure? Correct. Galactic-scale warfare disrupts cosmic stability. Previous civilizations demonstrated inevitable progression to destructive conflict. Termination prevented galactic structural damage. Commander Vasefkar stepped forward, her forearms in a gesture that combined Vorthak respect with human openness. And, we represent no such threat? The entity was silent for a long moment, its form shifting through patterns of analysis. Current integration level indicates stable galactic civilization potential. Species diversity maintained while conflict drivers eliminated. Unprecedented achievement. Termination protocol cancelled. The relief in the docking bay was palpable, but the entity was not finished. Warning: galactic integration must continue expanding. Partial integration creates instability boundaries. Remaining unintegrated regions pose eventual threat. Chen nodded. We understand. The confluence will continue expanding, but through invitation and demonstration rather than conquest. Acceptable. Cleaner oversight will continue at reduced frequency. Galactic civilization transition to stable status requires monitoring. The entity began to fade, but before it disappeared entirely, it conveyed one final message. Humanity's integration facilitation capability noted for future galactic cluster development. Other galaxies require similar intervention. Future cooperation possible. As the cleaner vessel departed, the assembled representatives of the galactic confluence stood in stunned silence. Navigation specialist Klostian was the first to speak. Did they just offer us a job? Dr. Velnarasol played a melody that somehow conveyed both laughter and amazement. It appears they want us to help other galaxies achieve what we have achieved here. Collective Node 7 Prime buzzed with excitement. Galactic integration facilitation as an intercluster profession. The possibilities are extraordinary. Commander Vasefkar looked at Captain Chen with something approaching awe. Marcus, when you humans first appeared in our galaxy, we thought you were the most dangerous species we had ever encountered. Chen smiled. Were we? Yes, she replied. You were dangerous to everything we thought we knew about how the galaxy had to work. You were dangerous to our assumptions about strength and weakness, about cooperation and competition, about what it means to be alive in a hostile universe. Dr. Velnarasol's music became soft and thoughtful. You showed us that the galaxy was only as hostile as its inhabitants chose to make it. Chen looked around at the beings who had once been strangers and enemies, who had become colleagues and friends, who were now family in the deepest sense of the word. We showed each other, he said quietly. Humans couldn't have done this alone. We needed Vorthak strength and Chronari innovation and Zilphani coordination and symphonic harmony and 43 other types of wisdom to become something new. Collective Node 7 Prime added, and now we will show other galaxies. Commander Vasefkar's expression became determined. The most dangerous species in the galaxy, spreading throughout the universe. Not conquest, Chen said. Liberation. Dr. Velnarasol played a melody that was both ending and beginning, both farewell and greeting. Liberation from the assumption that differences must divide us. As they left the docking bay, the representatives of the galactic confluence were already making plans. Plans for expansion and integration, for reaching out to other galaxies, for spreading the revolutionary idea that diversity could be a source of strength rather than conflict. The galaxy's deadliest species had indeed been humanity. But not because they conquered or destroyed. Because they had taught the galaxy to love itself. 18 months later, the first confluence vessels would depart for neighboring galaxies, carrying the most dangerous idea in cosmic history, that beings who were different from each other could choose to become family. And, in the cosmic perspective, that idea would prove more powerful than any weapon ever conceived, more transformative than any technology ever developed, and more dangerous to the old order than any force in the universe. The galaxy's deadliest species had turned out to be the one that taught everyone else how to transcend the very concept of having enemies at all. And now they were taking that lesson to the stars.